Hello and welcome to the Motherhood Guide, where it's all about making your experiences of pregnancy, birth and motherhood better. I'm your host Kelly, a mum of two, a hypnobirthing teacher and birth educator, and I'm here to help you thrive in motherhood rather than simply just survive. Let's get started. Hello Jenny, welcome to the Motherhood Guide podcast. I'm so
Hi,
excited to have
Kelly.
you here. And I wanted to just start by you doing a little introduction of who you are and what you do, because you are very much already embedded in this kind of motherhood space already, doing lots of exciting things. So I would love if you could do a wee introduction just to share that with us.
Yes, okay. So I am Jenny and I'm the creator of Mellow Mummas. So Mellow Mummas is a kind of hard to describe at the moment. It has grown into its own thing and it's grown in a completely different direction from what I thought it was going to grow into. And it is now like an online and in-person community for mums to be and mums and anybody who's a caregiver really to find support in what they're doing on their journey. And that's a really broad explanation, and I understand that that's very broad because, like I said, it's grown from what its original intent was, which was all about pregnancy yoga, which was 5 years ago when I started it. So now there's lots of aspects to Mellow Mamas, and it's kind of grown as I've grown as a person and as a mum as well. So what it encompasses is an online membership where people can access birth prep, especially birth prep yoga, and some resources like meditation, relaxation. It's also got an in-person element, so there's community events like retreats or meetups. And then my most recent addition to Mellow Mamas has been a physical like organizer and planner and journal for pregnancy. So it's kind of grown arms and legs, but to kind of encompass that into some words, it's a resource for support, really, for anybody who is on a parenthood journey. And everything that I do and now offer and encompass in Mellow Mamas has been something that's been a part of me for quite a while. So I started teaching yoga about 12 years ago, which seems crazy to say. And then when I became pregnant with my first daughter in 2017, I began studying pre and postnatal yoga, which was, although touched on in my original training, it was a much deeper dive. And Melamamas grew from there. And like as I said, like as I've grown as a person and I've done, like opened a door and then going, oh my goodness, there's a whole world back here. Opened another door. Oh my goodness, there's like so many roads you could choose from. I've kind of explored some different things and brought them all into Mellow Mamas, such as mindfulness, meditation, breath work, and most recently women's circles, so hosting them. So it has really grown to be this multifaceted community, and I'm really excited about it. I love talking about it, so I'm really glad to be here. You'll have to shut me up.
No, I love that. I know when I was like starting to write my notes, I was like, I feel like we actually might need more than one podcast
I
episode
know
for
this
all
is
of
gonna be a
this.
long one.
It is, because I feel like there's just so much for us to talk about, but I absolutely love your business. I feel like I really connected with it. At first, when I seen it, I was very much early on in my own business. I didn't actually really have a business. It was more so just an idea at this point. And I had found your page on my own personal page, and I was like, oh, this just looks like such a breath of fresh air. Do you know what I mean? And I
Oh,
feel
that's so
like
nice.
you can really see that it came from like a place of love, which I absolutely love, because that's exactly where my business has come from as well. Do you know, it came from me really connecting with what I needed and what I wish I'd had for that first
Yeah,
pregnancy, and what I've kind of learned as I've went on, and what I want to be able to offer other people so that they don't have to experience as much of the bad side of that journey as what I did in the first kind of
yeah.
point, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Do you feel the
absolutely.
same?
Yeah, and do you know what you've just touched on there, which makes me like I love talking about this, especially with people who are running a business. Like
Yeah,
it sounds like you are serving the earlier version of yourself so well. Like that's you are putting your work out into the world for
yeah,
the earlier version of you, the 5 years ago version of you.
so
And I
true.
completely resonate with that as well. Like when I first became pregnant, I would go to like a pregnancy yoga class. I actually was in London when I first became pregnant.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was going to pregnancy yoga and it was like a lovely class experience, like nice movement experience, good for my body. But I was like, I feel like something's missing. And I wasn't quite sure what it was. And actually,
Yeah,
what as Mellow Mamas has grown, I've realized that what I have put into it is really what that 5 years ago Jenny really, really wanted
yeah,
and really
exactly.
needed, but
Yeah.
didn't know, because you don't know what you don't know
You
at
don't know
that
what you don't
point.
know.
You had no idea.
Absolutely, you're so right. You're so right. And I do feel like, for the most part, people do overlook like going into doing a pregnancy yoga. And I feel like when you speak to people, often they see it as just another class to attend and it's just about meeting other mums, which it absolutely is great for. And it's obviously great to do that movement. But I feel like yoga is really overlooked as an actual tool to support you in your pregnancy and
Mm,
your birth and in your postnatal journey as well. And I
yeah,
feel like that's something that you do so well. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like you're making it really clear about how that can actually support the journey. It's not just about going to a class, if that makes sense, and just ticking the
yeah,
box.
just
There's
ticking the box off,
actually
totally.
there's benefit to be taken
Yeah,
from that class. So would you mind going over what the actual benefits are of doing pregnancy yoga, how that can support you in your pregnancy, how that can support you in your birth, how that supports that postnatal journey as well? Is that okay?
yeah, yeah, okay, yes. So,
It's a big
I
topic, I
know,
know. I'm sorry.
like,
I'm dropping you in it.
where to begin?
Yeah.
Well, I'll speak to it from my personal experience because yes, I teach it, but I've also used it in, well, now my 3 pregnancies because I'm pregnant just now with my 3rd, and it like so many things. First of all, it's a practice, so we're not ticking a box and being like, "I've done my pregnancy yoga, I'm good to go." It's an ongoing practice, and it's a tool, right? So it's not the only thing that I would recommend that you do in your pregnancy. I would recommend a whole host of things, pregnancy yoga being one of them. And actually, I would go so much as to say pregnancy movement, and really just making it super simple because yoga can encompass so much, right? And it can be so many more aspects other than just the physical movement. But if we strip it right back to basics and think about how your body needs to be able to move right now is to support baby and baby's growth and then baby's entrance into the world. And that's regardless of what kind of birth that you're planning, whether that's a vaginal birth or a surgical birth. All of pregnancy movement, pregnancy yoga can support the space that we're giving baby to grow, their positioning, your positioning, and their ultimately their entrance into the world. Postnatal as well, like there's a there there's so much that is possible to bring in from yoga. And like I say, there's so many more aspects that are not about the physical as well. But if we do think about just the physical for a moment, even just breathing in the right way postnatally to actually like allow your rib cage to draw back in to reconnect, not I'm not saying engage here, but to reconnect with your pelvic floor, to reconnect with your core. Even just the simple act of breathing is so fundamental. But what I like to think about for during pregnancy is like how I've used pregnancy yoga is up and down, right? Sometimes
Okay,
I want to
okay.
do a full half an hour, 45 minutes, 60-minute practice. And that'll mean rolling out a yoga mat, putting on some music, putting on some comfy clothes, making space for that practice. And then sometimes it means just doing a couple of quick stretches in whatever the hell I'm wearing at that moment, whether it's
Yeah.
jeans or a dress, or sometimes it's just breathe, just the act of breathing in a more conscious way, or even just like how I'm holding myself, posture, how I'm sitting. So it's about self awareness. All of the practices of pregnancy yoga and yoga completely are about increasing your self awareness. And I think from my experience, and hopefully people will agree if they've been pregnant, like self awareness is really, it is such a strong building block for everything else to come from.
Yeah.
If you're aware of what's happening for yourself, you're aware of how you're holding yourself, you're aware of what's going on in your mind, you're aware of your reactions, your triggers, your responses, you're aware of your desires, everything everything can grow from a really strong foundation. So very, very fundamental
Yeah.
level self-awareness is really what I've taken away from practicing movement, especially in pregnancy. And, you know, there then there's obviously then like the aspect of preparing actually for birth, preparing our
Yeah.
bodies for birth. And what I really wanted to talk about today and touch on was what we're looking for in labor is like to tap into our instincts, right? Like
Yes.
it's not the time to
Absolutely.
be intellectualizing something. It's not the time to pull out a PDF and go, this is a very beneficial birthing position. This might be a beneficial birthing position for this stage of labor or for that stage of labor." When
Yes.
we're in labor, that we need to go into our like primal brain, right? Like
Yes.
it's not the time to be intellectualizing movement.
Yeah.
During pregnancy is the time to intellectualize the movement and figure out how should I be what should I be considering while
Yeah.
I'm thinking about a movement practice. And that might be a movement practice, of anything, of yoga, Pilates, swimming, walking, even just sitting, especially in the
Yeah.
end of the third trimester. Like, what considerations do I need to take on board so that I'm ready to trust the process that my body is going to go through and trust
Uh-huh.
the instinctual positions that my body is going to take me into, and not over intellectualize it during labor. Intellectualize it during pregnancy so you understand it during pregnancy, you understand the dynamics and the mechanics of your pelvis. You understand, you're knowledgeable, you've educated yourself about baby's movements into the world. Um, and what might be holding them back as well.
Yeah.
What's connected to pelvic floor, which is basically everything.
Yeah.
What's
You learn
connected
that quickly. Yep. Yep.
and how do you generally move? Where are you restricted and how might that be holding back baby's movements and baby's entrance into the world? I feel like I've gone off on a big
No,
tangent
I
there.
I genuinely feel like you've hit the nail on the head, and I was just thinking to myself there when you were saying that, it's not about intellectualizing all of these positions
Yeah,
during
yeah,
labor, because I think that that's so relatable to my work as well.
yeah,
And that's something that I already say to all my clients when I'm doing the hypnobirthing courses, it's so beneficial for you to be practicing all of this beforehand so
yeah,
that you've got that understanding of how your body moves and how it feels when it moves into certain positions. Does that feel nice? Does it not? And that is not the time, like you said, to be trying to take on new information either, you
yeah,
know? And I always think that that's so relatable when it comes to like the antenatal education aspect of hypnobirthing, because, you know, if you don't do all of that prep work beforehand during your pregnancy, then that means that you are putting yourself in a position where you're going to have to take that on during the labor. But yeah, you need to do this prep work beforehand so you can actually understand what is actually going to happen to your body. and the decisions that you kind of need to make. If you do that in labor, then it's so difficult for you to actually act instinctively. You're kind of zoning out from your own actual instinct,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
and you're not
And I
allowing
do.
yourself to then zone in.
Yes, and how important is that zoning in? It's so important for your birth,
Yeah,
for you to really listen to your body and try and understand what it's going through and what it needs. And I do always think that movement does have to be so instinctive in birth, doesn't it?
yeah,
Because as much as I give people these, like, the upright forward and open positions, and I'm like, these are some suggestions,
yeah,
at the same time, I feel like, they're just kind of like little tips. And then when it actually
totally.
comes down to it, you really just need to go with what feels right for you. And you do so much instinctual movement as is,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And
Like,
I think, like, within all of that, there's a huge element of self-trust, right? Like, that needs to be fundamental in your birth prep for me, like, 100%. And you know what? I've found the most self-trust is through learning about physiological birth and learning how to trust that process, and therefore, like, trust myself in the process.
yes,
So that when
it's
those
so key.
weird movements come up, you know that your body might be moving in this direction because baby's needing to get away from your pubic bone, or it now needs to rotate, or whatever that may be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And how do you feel that, knowing what you know now, because this is obviously your third pregnancy, I'd love for you to share, how is this different third time round versus your first and your second pregnancies? Are you preparing in really different ways this time?
I think so, yeah. So, first time round, like I said earlier, I was living in London and I was gonna then move back up to Glasgow. And I actually had to I didn't have to, definitely didn't have to. I was presented with some information, shall we say, and I chose to accept a
Okay,
path that
okay,
was given to me, which was to get a cervical stitch.
okay,
So
okay.
I got a cervical stitch at 17 weeks, and after that, I was told to be on bed rest. Well, actually, I was told to be on bed rest just before it as well. So I was on
Gosh.
modified bed rest, like, you can get up and go to the bathroom, but then come back and go to your bed, kind of bed
Oh,
rest, for I think it was about 4 weeks total, so a week before and then 3 weeks after. And during that time, I was so worried. Like, I was so worried. I mean, a cervical stitch is put there because you might have a chance of miscarrying or having an early labor, and I was so worried, and therefore worried, tense, stressed.
yeah.
That is no good for anything that's going on with our bodies.
No, 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 no. We know that that is very bad. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
I was in a lot of pain. I was having a
Oh,
lot of pelvic pain, a lot of pubic symphysis pain, which in hindsight, I know now is really related to the stress and tension and worry
tension. Yeah.
that I had. So I had that going on, and then I had to move from London to Glasgow, and so there was a lot of change in my life, a lot of, like, a lot I'm gonna say a lot of stress,
Mhm.
which was, it it you know, if you asked me at the time, like, "Are you stressed out?" I would have said no, but actually there's, like, underlying stress that was just, like, heavy on my shoulders. So, my birth prep back then was also knowing that I didn't know very much about birth at all. I didn't learn too much about physiological birth. I did, like, a one-day birth prep course with a doula who actually became my doula for the birth.
Oh, that's
And
lovely.
yeah. And I read some books, watched a lot of birth videos on YouTube, that kind of thing. Um, but my birth prep, I think first time round was very, like, external.
Mhm.
Like, I wasn't thinking too much about myself, if that
Yeah,
makes
I
sense.
understand what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, read the book, but maybe not fully take on the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tick the
And
box. Like,
I think that it's hard because there's an element of responsibility that we all need to take
yeah,
when it comes to, being pregnant and, gathering the information and really embodying the information that we're
yeah,
given
yeah,
and implementing that. So there is
yeah,
an element of responsibility, isn't there? I get what
yeah,
you mean.
yeah. And that embodiment part is so crucial. Like, you can read all the books, you can watch all the YouTube videos, you can listen to the affirmations, but like, you need to pause in between all
Yeah,
those things, because if you just keep absorbing, absorbing, absorbing and not actually embodying, then that's what I was doing, right?
yeah,
That's what I was doing
yeah.
first time round. So this might go on a wee bit of a tangent from your initial question, but
Tangents
we'll
are
circle back.
fine.
We'll circle back.
Yeah,
So
we're
first
good.
time round, I, as I said, had the doula, Jen, and I was preparing for home birth. So I decided at 30 weeks to look into home birth. And the reason that I started looking into that and decided to go down that path was Jen's website. When I came across Jen, I saw a YouTube video on her page about somebody else that was having a home birth, and that opened up that door to me, and I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. I'm going to transfer to the home birth team and go down that road. And again, not knowing as much as I know now, got to 42 weeks. Well, actually got to like 39 weeks before they started talking about induction. But between like
Yeah,
39 and 42, like I tried to hold off as long as possible. And I really felt a lot of pressure from
yeah.
care providers for induction. And you know, hopefully listeners are aware of that as well if they are headed towards that time. But there's can be so much coercion,
Mhm.
miscommunication of
Yep.
use of language. It's a
So
really
problematic.
difficult time. I wasn't really fully prepared for the conversations that might come away. So I said yes to an induction at 42 plus 2 and went to the hospital and had Calla, my first daughter. So for birth prep second time round, Mellow Mummas was like in full swing because I had, after Calla, my first daughter, I started Mellow Mummas pregnancy yoga classes, interweaved a little bit of birth prep into
Mhm.
the pregnancy yoga, bit of community, like was loving what Mellow Mamas was becoming. And then other people were kind of coming into Mellow Mamas and creating videos for the online library. So
Yep.
my knowledge was hugely expanded and my awareness like wide open. So I felt like I maybe wasn't fully educated, but I was a lot more aware of what
Yeah.
is going on during pregnancy, what's going on with our bodies. And I really leaned heavy into pregnancy yoga during that time. A lot of like hypnobirthing techniques, did a hypnobirthing course,
Mhm.
lots of listening to affirmations, lots of watching positive birth videos. But this time being a bit more internalized with the practices that I was doing. And then also reflecting on Calla's birth, like what did I want to be different? How could I prepare for that? So yeah, a very different birth prep second time round. And I had a different doula second time round, a girl called Holly.
Okay.
And all doulas are different, right? So Holly just had
Yes.
a bit of a different take
Per
on,
Yeah.
maybe not a different take as such, but a different angle to come at things from.
Mhm.
And
Like a fresh perspective.
yeah, just
Yeah.
different, just
Yeah.
different from Jen. And but also just before I go any further forward, like that a doula and client, it's a dynamic, you're a duo. So this is,
Yeah.
I'm not saying like one was better than the other because
No.
I contribute to that relationship as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, just
Absolutely.
Holly and I just had a different dynamic, and she brought a lot more introspection and reflection to
Okay.
our conversations and our birth prep, and she was really, really present in that um, last stretch. And again, I went to 42 plus 2 again. So I saw Holly quite a lot in the final weeks, and we did a lot of a lot of introspection. One session actually, which was probably my most memorable session with her, and we're sitting out on the balcony, and she's got these tarot cards and
Okay.
oracle cards. And so she's like, "We're gonna pull some cards." And I was like, "Okay, like, yeah, cool, whatever, Holly."
Go for
Like,
it. Yeah.
"Sure, I trust you." And
Yeah.
then actually, like, what came up in all of these cards and then their descriptions was, like, so, so, so relevant to what I was going
Wow.
through in life, out with pregnancy and birth prep, like, just in life. And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my god," like, actually talking about these things that they're making me these cards and these descriptions, like, what's this bringing up for me? Talking about all that with Holly was, like, such a release. It was almost
Yeah.
like a wee therapy session,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, just, like, that was just one of our sessions, like, just to give you an example of how, like, actually it was a lot about introspection, it was a lot about me as a person, and it was a lot
Mhm.
about just what's going on in my life. That was just one of the sessions, but a lot of the other sessions were a lot more like specific as well, and we talked a
Yeah.
lot about previous birth, previous experience, and all that kind of thing.
So fascinating. I love hearing
Yeah,
about, like, the work of doulas as well. I find it so, so interesting because
yeah,
they can really bring something so special to the table, and
yeah,
it sounds like you definitely got that, and it's so funny, like, hearing you say, like, it's like a little therapy session, but it
yeah,
kinda does need to be when we're talking about, we do need to internalize that information, and we need to, take responsibility for some elements of our birth, and that's really useful.
yeah.
Did you find
'Cause,
it quite hard to go quite introspective?
um, so yeah, I did find it hard, but I think like I said, like it's a dynamic between the two of you. And so if
Mhm.
the foundations are built like around trust and communication and how you want to be with each other, then
Yeah.
that doula can kind of guide you in these some different practices. And their doulas are also different. And what I love about I've now got a different doula for my third birth.
Okay.
She's completely different again, and she has different interests and different skill sets, and she brings those interests and her skills into her work. They all do that, and I think that's amazing. And if people are considering a doula, research the doulas and figure out what they're all about and what do they bring to the table.
And I think that connection so important, especially for that doula and client dynamic, isn't it? It's so
Mm,
important. And
yeah.
even like just from the like my own perspective, I think that that's important. Even just like in my line of work, just even doing a hypnobirthing course because you'll get the most out of the person that you connect the most with.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, the rest of the birth prep with Tula, who's my second, I did do a lot of pregnancy yoga and general movement and a fair bit of like body work. So osteo,
Hmm.
chiro, physio, pelvic floor physio, getting help from all those professionals I think is and was really, really great, really, really helpful. And then third time round, what's different? I'm doing a lot of body work just now, a lot of chiro, osteo, physio, massage, and also because I've been in a lot of pain, which I'm not anymore, but I was, and they've
Hmm.
helped me through that. But then my biggest difference third time round is herbs. And
Oh,
that's
this is
actually because
interesting.
of Clem, my doula.
Okay.
So
I
Clem's
would
a
love to know more about that. Please
oh
share.
gosh, yeah. So, well, I was first introduced to herbal medicine through Lucy Bradley, who is a
Mhm.
fantastic herbalist here in Glasgow. Yeah, I first met Lucy, yes, at an event at the gym, connected with her, and then later on had some consultations with her, had some herbal medicine actually from her, which helped me get back on track with my periods when just before Tula was conceived. So helped me
Right.
get back to a regular flow, a regular cycle. So herbs have always kind of been in my life since meeting Lucy, actually.
Yeah.
And then so during this third pregnancy, well, actually, as soon as I became pregnant, I texted Clem, the doula, who's also a herbalist. As soon as I became pregnant, or I knew I was pregnant, I knew that I wanted to get Clem on board for being my doula. So Clem makes all of her own herbal remedies, herbal medicines. She grows her own herbs. She is an amazing, amazing person, and she has brought a lot of other styles of herbs into my life through this pregnancy. And I touched on earlier, I've been in a lot of pain recently, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
pubic bone pain and round ligament pain, which has just been absolutely, honestly excruciating.
Hellish. Yeah,
I can laugh
absolutely.
about it right now, but I was definitely not laughing for the past few months.
And
Um,
that's the worst.
oh,
It's
it was
horrible. Yeah.
horrendous. I mean, there was days where I couldn't lift a foot off the ground to take a step without
Oh,
wanting to scream in pain.
so debilitating, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And so when you're in pain, like for me, I was really like in the moment with the pain. It was
Mhm.
really hard for me to like zoom out and think like, what do I need bigger picture?
Yeah.
And I think that's relevant to a lot of things that you might be going through. And actually, in those times, like you need people to help you zoom out, or you
Yeah.
need people to just have that bird's eye view for you and be like, "Hey, I feel like this might be a help for
Yeah.
you right now. This might support you in this way right now." And all that have other people help you connect the dots because I was
Totally.
so present to the pain, like I could hardly think of anything else other than just
Mhm.
surviving, getting through the day, not crying of being in pain,
Oh.
and figuring out how can I take as little steps as possible today.
Yeah.
And so I I feel like I must have had a little bit of respite at some point because I was
Yeah.
able to, like, think to myself, "Okay, you need help.
Yeah, you need to
Who
get
can you
something
turn
sorted.
to? Who can you turn to?
Yeah.
You've already got Clem to support you. Let's speak to Clem. Let's see if there's any herbs that can help you." And I'm not saying that I'm thinking, "Oh, there's a magic herb that's gonna take this pain away." It's not
Mhm.
about that. It's about soothing your central nervous system, getting you back into feeling not even feeling like yourself, but just bringing you back from that like cycle of pain, tension, fear, and
Yeah.
being in there and bringing you back to a little bit more of a parasympathetic state, like
Yeah.
being able
A
to
lot calmer,
regulate,
yeah.
being
Mhm.
able to regulate. And so Clem sent me a big box of loads of herbs. She's like, "I think you're gonna need
Oh.
this. You're gonna need this. This is for this. Take this." Clem's very much about personal responsibility when it comes to dosage as well. So she'll help you figure out what's a right dosage for you and a right cadence
Mhm.
for you. But there's so many. There's not a magic herb. They're all
Yeah,
magic
yeah,
in
of
their own
course.
ways, but there's n
They've
there
all
like
got their own
there
thing that
wasn't
they help with.
yeah, there wasn't something that she's like, "Take this and it's gonna take your pain away." There's absolutely no promise of that. It's it's more about your well, for me, what I've experienced is it's about the nervous system. And then
Mhm.
within that little break, that little bit of respite I could get, I was like, right, we need to get more body work going on in here. I need to up the osteo, up the physio, up the chiro, and have other people help me here because I can't get out of this. I can't do this for myself right now. Yeah,
And
this is
taking on that help from other people, which I think is so
yeah,
hard for us, isn't it? And
yeah,
especially when we're already mums, I feel like getting the help from other people can be really difficult to accept.
yeah,
Like, because we're so used to, you know, doing all the things and being everything to everybody,
yeah.
that actually we try and plow on a lot in pregnancy when we
Oh,
probably should
totally.
step back and just let people look after us,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know?
No, I totally agree. It is really hard. Like I found it hard when I was in the pain. What actually I've did found really hard was that I was fine up here
Yeah.
in my head. I was fine. I didn't have a cold or a flu or
Mhm.
something going on that was creating maybe pain in my body. I had just had physical pain in my body, but fine mentally. So I was like, that's fine. I can just sit at home and do some admin.
Yeah.
But actually, that's still not resting.
No, it's not.
I actually
It's
needed
not.
to sleep a lot,
Yeah, totally.
and get the body work done, like, just have all of those, like, relaxing and restful elements to my day that and there was a lot of guilt that came with that because I was, like,
Mhm.
thinking to myself, "I could be on my computer right now, I could be doing some work, I could be doing admin, like, I'll be able
Totally.
to support because I as well as Mellow Mummas, I work, for a retail company, so
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking to myself, "I could be supporting the store, I'll just do work from home, I'll just do admin." And I was like, "No, you like,
You
that
need to
is
step
that's not
back,
rest,
yeah.
that's not rest, that's not rest."
I
And
know, and
so
aren't we so bad for that? See, especially I find like as a small business, like how hard is it to take a step back and rest when you need to rest? It's so difficult. And then
yeah.
sometimes I feel like such a hypocrite because I'm like, like speaking to my clients and I'm like, it's all about accepting help and resting when you need to rest and blah blah blah. And then I come back and I'm like, yeah, I just work to
Yeah.
midnight. It's fine. And I'm like, why did I do that? Why
Yeah,
did I
can
do
you take
that?
your own advice? I know.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we do. When we enter this kind of motherhood journey, it does become hard to accept help. We want to kind of show people that we're strong enough and we can handle it and all of this. But actually, strength comes from accepting help as well, doesn't it? We
yeah,
always need to be at our best. And the
yeah.
only way you can be at your best is if you look after yourself. And how do you think that you're going to kind of get that dynamic when you introduce another baby into your family?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. I have
I love
no
the
idea.
honesty. Yeah. No,
I don't know what
yeah.
the hell's gonna happen.
There is an element of winging it that just has to happen, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, we can prepare for so many things, but
Yeah,
also sometimes you just need to let the things just happen how they happen.
we'll figure it out. It's all figure
Yeah,
outable. Yeah, it's all figure
it is.
outable. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The main thing I think is just routine as much as possible, like, my
Mhm.
little ones are at school and nursery, but yeah, just keeping their routine. I'm I'm definitely thinking to myself about preparing for postpartum, like,
Yeah,
personally and for the baby, but actually as a family dynamic, being a family of 5, like,
yeah,
I'm like it gives me the biggest anxiety, like, of everything that I'm preparing for.
yeah.
The dynamics of being a family of 5 is like, "Oh god, how is it all gonna work?" But I know it's gonna work.
Yeah,
I'll
because
still
it
be
always
fine.
does.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that in motherhood, like, it's a constant learning experience, and
yeah,
I always say this, like, I've obviously only got 2, but they're so completely different that I feel like a new mum every time. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they are polar opposites in every way. So, with Harlow, I had certain challenges, but then with Jonah, I've got some elements that I'm like, right, it's okay. I know what to do with this. I've got this. I've done this before.
yeah.
But then also, he just totally throws me off by giving me a completely new challenge, and I'm like, ah, I'm not sure what I'm doing anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
Where I think
100%.
every
Yeah,
child is a new learning experience, aren't
yeah,
they? You're just
yeah.
constantly learning, constantly evolving, constantly getting better, and you know, finding new ways to manage.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
really resonate with, I don't know if this is a quote. If it is a quote, I don't know who it's by. I've got no idea.
Okay.
But the thinking that when your first child is born, you're also born as a mother. And so you're
Yeah.
both being raised together. Like, you're
Oh
raising
yeah.
yourself as a mother and you're raising the child. But then when your second child is born, you're at a different place. So
Hmm.
there's more it's more of an aspect of raising the child, and of course, like you say, you're different as well, you're always different, it's a different
Hmm.
journey, but you're at a completely different place, and so you're
Totally.
able to bring them up with a bit of a different perspective and a bit of
100%.
hindsight
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we're never ever going to be perfect parents ever.
No, far from
But
it.
I think that's actually a great thing though, that process of like evolution and always getting better and always learning more. And that is kind of what I wanted the podcast to be all about. It's just about, hearing different perspectives and,
Yeah,
maybe taking on information that you maybe wouldn't have necessarily went out your way to look for, but now you've heard it and you're like, oh, that's interesting. I might look into that
yeah,
now. and,
Yeah,
constantly evolving and finding new ways to make that motherhood journey more positive and better. And that can look like 100 different ways for 100 different people. We're all so
absolutely.
unique in our journeys and, the things that we connect with and what we take from things. But I wanted to also talk to you about your newest venture because I'm very interested in this. Pregnancy planner. Please talk to me about your
Yeah,
pregnancy
oh my
planner journal.
gosh. Yeah, so I've always had a thing with physical planners, right?
Okay.
Like a beautiful, like, hard exterior, ring bound,
Mhm.
like, I
Love
love a
that.
planner, and I'd never ever found the one that I would have dreamt up, right? So I'd tried lots of different ones, and I remember so the retail company that I work for, they're really into personal development, and we're always encouraged to think about, like, what do you wanna do in life? Like, what's something that lights you up? Like, how can you follow the things that light you up just to be more of
Amazing.
yourself, and, what goals do you wanna set for yourself? And I remember setting a goal of creating a planner, like creating an organizer. Not about pregnancy or anything, just a general one, and it was, like, always on my mind, and I was always thinking, "Oh, I'll need loads of time to do that, like, how would I do it?" I'm not sure, but it was on my radar for quite
Mhm.
a number of years, and then April, I found out I was pregnant, and then in May, we were going on holiday, um, for a couple weeks to Turkey, and it was during that time I started, like, dreaming it up, making some notes, which I know sounds a bit mad, right, when you're on holiday, but there was me and Greg and the 2 kids, and
Yeah, I
they're
get
na
it.
they're napping because 'cause they're absolutely zonked from playing in the
Mhm.
pool all morning, and you're just kind of, like, hanging out. Like, I had some headspace, just
Yeah,
not much, maybe a couple hours a day, but I had a bit of headspace actually just to think and dedicate that headspace to something,
yeah.
like, and I was like, "I'm gonna think about the planner while
Mhm.
I'm on holiday."
Mhm.
And I'd just become pregnant, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I think I'm gonna weave this together."
Yeah.
So I started sort of dreaming it up and just putting pen to paper, figuring out, like, what could I include, and a lot of what I was leaning into was all of the personal development stuff that I've learned through doing life coaching certifications, all of mindfulness
Mhm.
practices that I've learned through becoming a mindfulness facilitator. It all just started to come together in a way that I hadn't necessarily seen before. And I
Mhm.
knew I just needed headspace to get it out of my brain onto, like, a kind of mind map, figure something out,
Yeah.
and then actually just starting putting the bones of it together. So, I studied some mindfulness, like, last year for, like, mindfulness facilitator, and
Mhm.
started bringing that into some of the stuff that I was recording for Mellow Mummas. I was able to, like, weave it into birth prep in a way that was bringing some introspection, bringing some reflection, in,
Yeah.
like, micro doses, right? So, like, in the planner, that's all about you as a person, so it's not necessarily talking about specifically about birth all the time, but it's talking about you as a person, and it's
Mhm.
helping you figure out what's going on for you.
Yeah.
And but of course then, like, more ideas started to flow and more things started to come to me. So it took me a lot longer than I thought it was gonna to get, like, the bones of it there. And I feel like it's something I'll never be finished. There'll probably be, like, a version 20 at some point.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, the planner is it starts off with mindfulness and reflective exercises. Then it's got some space for, like, keeping notes about your pregnancy, notes about your appointments, how you're feeling about going to the appointments, what questions do you wanna take to care providers, what what are you working through at the moment? And then it's got some space for journaling, so it's got some journal prompts, it's got some space for visualizing your birth, writing
Mhm.
all that out, It's got space for a weekly check-in,
Mhm.
like, "What do I need to do this week? What are some words for my baby this week? How am I looking after myself this week?" And so a lot of it is prompts for you
Mhm.
to, and you can take it as day to day. You could open that journal and read one of the exercises one day and get something out of it, and then read it a week later and get something different out of it. So,
Love that.
like the doula dynamic, it's the same. It's a dynamic between you and that journal and those exercises, and you
Oh,
bring
I love that.
your mindset's gonna change the output.
Sounds
Um,
amazing. That sounds so beneficial, genuinely. Like,
yeah,
I would have loved that for I maybe wasn't in the headspace for it for the first pregnancy, but my second pregnancy, that is
yeah,
exactly what I would have loved to have had. I
yeah.
think that's so beneficial. I'm really excited to hear about that. That's amazing.
Yes, yes, thank you so much, yeah.
Fabulous.
I and like I said, so it'll definitely evolve, but I'm really excited by it. I've been gifting it out and getting some feedback on it from different people, and there's
Amazing.
people that are wanting to stock it in their clinics or their studios, which has just blown my
So
mind.
great. Amazing. And now I
Yeah,
know, Jenny, you're going to be slowing down now whilst you prepare for your baby, but
yes.
you do have one last retreat, and I'm going to be there. I'm
One
so
last
excited.
I know, I'm so excited to see you there. Yeah, I've got one last retreat. So yeah, the retreats, they started a few years ago. Started with doing pregnancy and birth prep retreats. So I'll do a little bit. I'll bring in some other birth educators to do little bits. We have a nice
Mhm,
lunch. We have time for connection. We do circles. I do lots of different exercise, like
mhm.
styles of exercises when we're there. I absolutely love them, but the pregnancy ones are beautiful.
Okay.
Specifically, like, just there's so much oxytocin in the room, like,
Yes,
and just getting mums to be
absolutely.
together, like, a lot of mums to be, like, when you're pregnant, you might not know somebody else in your circle that's
Mhm.
pregnant at the same time, so it's really nice to connect
Yeah.
with other people that are at a similar point in your journey,
100.
and, there's also a mini maternity photo shoot at them as well in the
Yes.
afternoon, so everybody gets some beautiful little bump pictures, which a lot of people, like, they might want to do, but they don't book for themselves, so they're
Yeah,
able to get that on the day as well.
totally.
But when I started doing them, I got feedback from lots of people who follow Mellow Mummas or are on the mailing
Yeah,
list or whatever, and they're like, "Hang on a minute, this day sounds delightful, but I wanna
yeah.
come, but I'm not pregnant." And I was like, "Okay, I could
Mhm.
definitely do a women's
Do this.
retreat."
Yeah. Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, so that's how
So
there's the 2
excited.
styles of retreats, yeah, the birth prep retreats and then the women's retreat, which I'm now calling a mindful motherhood retreat.
Mhm.
So that's the one that's coming up,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
next
so
Saturday.
excited. I
Yeah.
will be sure to tell everybody all about it. I'm really excited because I know that obviously with the retreat, because technically that's actually kind of how we officially met.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
ended
yeah,
up working at one of your birth retreats, which was
yep,
fabulous. But the minute that I had been to that, even as somebody that was there in a professional capacity, oh, I was like, I need to be at one of
yeah,
these.
I
I need
know.
this because I think, like, for me, like looking at it from my perspective right now, I've said already about how bad I am, following my own advice and
Yeah,
really taking that time and stepping back. And I feel like a retreat forces you to do that, doesn't it?
yeah,
Totally forces you into that
yeah.
headspace, whether you want to be or not. You have to show up, you have to get into that headspace and give yourself the time and the space to just chill out and give yourself what you need.
And, like, I think there's whether it's through your business or through being a parent, you give you're givers. You're always
Yeah,
giving. You're giving a
yeah.
part of yourself all day, every day to actually, like, stop and be on the receiving end of
Mhm,
support, of care, of, like, physical touch,
mhm,
of, like, to be the receiver. It can be a hard transition as well, like, it can take
mhm,
people a couple hours to, like, settle into the space or, like, to settle into the mindset of, like, "Oh, I don't need to prepare anybody lunch today. I can turn my phone on airplane, or I can
mhm.
just literally switch off." Like, it takes a wee bit of time,
Totally.
um, and which I actually also think is why people come back for their second. Yeah.
I don't doubt that I will want to do this
Yeah.
every time that it's available. I don't doubt. So, are you planning, hopefully, maybe when you're further into the postpartum? Obviously,
Yes.
that won't happen
We'll be back.
immediately, but are the retreats coming back? Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Good.
not promising when, but
Yeah.
maybe next summer. There'll
Amazing.
definitely
Well.
be more. And I've kind of moved them around central Scotland each time,
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
locations. And yeah, it's like the journal. I've always got ideas of people to invite along or to like who to collaborate with, what to do
Yeah.
on them. Because they're never the same.
Mhm.
All of the retreats, like they're never the same. There's not like a blueprint that I follow for content. There is
Mhm.
for I follow a blueprint for timing, but and then like
Yeah.
switch in and out who comes and collaborates and hosts a session or actually this leads me to something else that I'd made a note of that I wanted to talk about Mellow Mamas.
Go for it.
There's
Go for it.
a huge element for me of being an
Yeah.
adult is something that I feel sometimes is missing is
Mhm.
that like childlike curiosity about making friends.
Okay. No, I
I've
get it.
come across so many cool people on Instagram
Mhm.
like you, where
Oh,
I've got you're up
thanks.
to some really cool stuff. And you know what? I'm gonna drop you a DM and I'm gonna be like, "Hey girl, like I love what you're doing. We seem
Yeah.
really aligned. I'd love to keep in
Yeah.
touch. I'd love to grab a coffee one day." And
Mhm.
like being able to do that and actually just grow a network which can also become a friendship is
Absolutely.
so
So
beautiful
cool.
and it's been so rewarding in both like professional and personal ways. There's just I think like maternal loneliness is a very real thing
So much so,
and
yeah.
to put yourself in or to get into a mindset of like I'm the only one that's going through this, or I feel really alone, like I don't know what to do. Like
Mhm.
it's not a good place to be,
No.
and it takes a lot to put yourself out there and be like, "Hey, you look like a friendly face. Do you want to chat?" And
Yeah, it's
I
hard.
remember like being a new mum and going to places like Bookbug at the library or going to the
Mhm.
park and thinking to myself, I'll probably meet another mum here. Maybe we could be
Yeah.
friends. Maybe we could
Yeah.
like our kids could like have fun together and we could have a coffee. And like none of that ever happened.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah.
And
And
do you know, I relate to that a lot as well, Jenny, because people always think that I'm quite confident because of the nature of how I show up on social media, I guess, with
yeah,
my business. But actually, I'm totally not. And that was something that was really difficult for me in my first postpartum journey because none of my friends had babies. I
yeah,
ended up having one friend, woohoo, go me. I had one friend. And honestly, I was really lonely and really low because she was all I had during the week. My
yeah,
husband worked long hours and it was just me and my little girl. And just that meeting that one person one day a week, like
yeah,
that was just like such a light for me.
yeah,
So I very much felt that loneliness and it's so tough. It's
yeah,
so tough.
yeah,
Absolutely. And
absolutely.
it's so
And
difficult to make friends as a mum because you go to all of these groups, but sometimes it's really still hard to form those connections.
yeah,
Still hard.
yeah, definitely. One thing I just that came to mind there when you said at the end there, like you can still be surrounded by people but feel lonely. Like,
So
if
much,
there's not
yeah.
a connection,
Mhm.
even just the basic human connection of, like, eye contact, of somebody feeling seen or somebody feeling
Mhm.
heard
Yeah.
through a very simple conversation, like, that can change somebody's day. That loneliness can still happen even if you're well supported and you're surrounded by
Mhm.
people. And, yeah, like, sometimes what I found with going to the baby groups is you would communicate through your baby.
Yeah.
So I'd be like to Carla, "Say hi to Joshua. Say hi
Yeah,
to Joshua for
exactly.
me."
Yeah. Why do
You
you do
know?
that, eh?
And, like and
Yeah.
and it's so normal to kind of communicate through them
Mhm.
that there's that fundamental aspect, that human desire of feeling
Yeah.
heard and feeling seen is kinda missed.
I
Yeah.
know, totally, but sometimes it can be difficult to form those connections, and I was kinda, I don't know if this is just me, this is probably my insecurity showing here, but sometimes I would feel like, do they actually want to be friends with me, or is this just convenient because we've both got kids the same age? And then I was totally overthinking the friendship as well, and then I'm like, "God, leave yourself alone." Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, you don't need to think like that. So crazy. I've
Oh,
been there.
yeah. Yeah,
Totally. It can be really hard to form connections as well. But what I do really like about even just like the retreats that you do, Jenny, like I feel like there is that focus on connection and
yeah,
really seeing each other and like having that space to kind of be yourself and
yeah.
there's no judgment and it just feels like such a nice open welcoming space. That's the kind of vibe that I got at that birth retreat that I worked at. So I
Yeah,
absolutely
and that's
I
so
love
nice to
that.
hear it from your perspective there, because that's definitely what the intention is just to
Yeah.
create a space where people feel seen, they feel heard, and they feel celebrated for who they are in
Yeah.
whatever aspect that might be, and, there's different ways that I can work to get us there. Got kinda lots of tools up my sleeve and different things that we can do
Mhm.
together, and it's not just, like, bringing people together and hoping for the best. It's orchestrated in a way that is what we're working towards, and I think that can be missing from a lot of gatherings as well, like,
Yeah.
having even if you're just getting a group of mums round to yours for a play date and a coffee, like, what's the intention here? Like, why
Mhm.
are we getting together? What can you put in place to try and fill
Yeah.
that human need or get
Yeah.
towards your intention? So, it doesn't need to be, like, robotic in any way, but, like, having things in place where you can hold that space, even if
Mhm.
it's a simple introduction of one person to another, like,
Yeah.
figuring out what each other's like, what's something in common that they've got and making that introduction for people.
So great. That's what you do so well though, Jenny. I feel like you do facilitate that so well.
Thank you.
And that'll be why your retreats are so successful
Yeah.
because
And,
you're such a great facilitator.
I've not thank you, firstly, but I've not like, that's not just come out the blue. I've been on the receiving end of that for a long time through my work, and then doing life coaching or group coaching qualifications, and being in those situations and being the receiver of them has
Yeah.
actually, like, made me able to do what I can do. Yeah.
That's such a good point. I love that. Well, Jenny, I feel like we could talk for 3 hours,
Oh
1 hour.
gosh, I know. I was just getting
Anyway,
started.
well, that just means there needs to be a part two. As simple
Yeah,
as that.
I know.
But thank you so much for sharing so so much with us today. So much knowledge and so much insight. I absolutely love it. So
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks for
I
being on
will
track.
see you next weekend and I am absolutely going to report back on this retreat because I have no doubt in my mind this is exactly what I'm needing and I'm going to take a lot from it. So I will absolutely
Yes,
be reporting back for anybody that wants to go to one in the future. But I was
yes.
going to say, so, can you just give us a quick rundown of how people could potentially work with you or support your business whilst you are on maternity leave and you kind of plan for the period moving forward, just so that if people do want to access these things that we've talked about, where can they do that?
Yes, amazing, thank you. Everything is on mellowmummas.com. Mummas is
Yeah,
MUMMAS, and on there you'll find the class library. So if you are pregnant, you can access the class library and get an access to a whole host of resources and classes from myself and some other facilitators that are on there. The planner is also linked on there as well, and mailing list is on there. Mailing list always hears first about the retreats. So yeah, everything's on my website, and
perfect.
yeah, Instagram is where I'm mostly at on social media, and that's just at Mellow Mamas, all one word.
Perfect. I
Yeah.
will pop everything in the show notes as well, so that's nice and easy for everybody to find. But
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me today. It's been amazing to speak to you, and all the best for everything moving forward with your pregnancy and birth. But I will see you next weekend, so I'm very happy to see you next weekend.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. You too.
Bye.
So I really hope that you've enjoyed today's episode and that you've been able to take something away from it, whether that's feeling less alone or more in the know. If you have enjoyed today's episode, the usual stuff applies. A review or a share with a friend is a really great way for me to build my community so that I can help more women. All the good stuff is in the show notes, guys, including details on how to work with me, or you can check out my website at www.breathingtobirth.com. I'll see you next week.